Hi, I'm Penny Robinson and I'm a bookseller and manager at Dymocks Melbourne. Today I'm talking with Robbie Arnott about his new novel, The Rain Heron, which will be published by Text next month. His 2018 debut novel, Flames, was shortlisted for a Victorian Premier's Literary Award, a New South Wales Premier's Literary Award, a Queensland Literary Award, the Readings Prize for New Australian Fiction, and the Guardian's Not the Booker Prize. Hi, Robbie.
Hi, Penny. Thank you so much.
Thanks for chatting with me today. So one of the most striking aspects of The Rain Heron is its focus on nature and our human connection to it. The reader is just as invested in the survival of the natural world as we are in the characters themselves. Your descriptions of nature are also really captivating. You talk about ravens calling with deep rasp through the trees, towering swamp green pines, the scrubbed endless sky. What inspired you to write a narrative that deals so closely with nature in this way and our relationship to it?
That's a great question, Penny. Thank you. Probably a couple of things. One is that I live in Tasmania and I'm really lucky and I get to spend a lot of time in nature and in the wilderness. And I think that inevitably becomes a bit of an inspiration and leaks into my writing, whether I want it to or not. And the other thing is that I just find the world just as interesting as the people in it. I like writing about people, I like characters, but I really like describing the natural world, and when I go to write something, that's generally always where I start. I'll picture a place or I'll invent a place based on somewhere I've been, and I'll start describing it, and then the story spins off from there.
Yeah, amazing. You can definitely see that in the Rain Heron, and actually the world you build from the outset of the novel is fraught with that extreme weather as well that we've had recently. And those weather conditions and changing climate that each character in the book is trying to combat and survive in their own way. The central plot of The Rain Heron deals with humans essentially fighting a war against nature itself, a coup in response to this life-altering weather. And this hits pretty close to home after Australia's own battles with nature in recent years. In what ways is this intended as symbolism for broader political themes of environmental sustainability and climate change?
Well, another question. I just set out to write a story where real characters or characters who felt real had their lives intertwined with a nature fable. And that's where I started, and that's all I wanted to do. But then the events of what was happening in the real world and what was happening to the environment kind of crept in, partly deliberately, but also kind of as an accident. I didn't set out to write a book that had a message or was didactic or was a lesson for anybody. I don't really feel that I have the wisdom or the authority to do that. What I wanted to do in the book, and hopefully it comes through, is have an invented world and an invented reality that is also really reflective of what we experience every day. And to have some of the things that we're seeing happen to our world reflected in fiction, I think can be a really powerful tool for people to reflect on the world around them. And I hope that would happen. But I also just hoped I wrote a story that people really wanted to finish. And I thought if I could do both, then I'd sleep well at night.
I think you've definitely done both, and it's definitely reflective of what we've been dealing with at the moment. I really loved The Rain Heron and I really enjoyed reading it. And
Thank you.
Well, I was particularly also drawn to your writing of predominantly female characters. The novel is split between the individual yet interconnected stories of Ren and Zoe. And while you don't write these female protagonists in a way that focuses on their status as women at all, their stories are really only shared with two male characters, Daniel and Barrow. How did you find the experience of creating and writing leading female characters?
It's something I did think about a lot as I got into it. I didn't think about it too much at the start. When I created these roles, I didn't think about gender too much at the start. I just thought about the story I wanted to tell and where I wanted those characters to go. And it just made more sense for me for those characters, for this story to be female. Partly because both of those characters exhibit and are required to experience a lot of resilience. And to me, that felt much real as a female trait within this story. Because they're spending a lot of time in the wilderness, I thought writing them as male characters would have come across as a bit twee or a great white hunter or a man battling against the elements. And I'm sure lots of writers could do that well, but I didn't think I could do that. and it just came across as a bit cliched for me. But when I started thinking about them as female characters and the inherent resilience that I often associate with women and the women in my life, that it started to feel really real to me. That much more gentle, firm, methodical way of dealing with problems, as opposed to letting anger and frustration rise to the surface. It just, the characters felt more real. And by the time I realized, should I be writing about female characters in this way, it was too late. This book was nearly done. So before I really questioned whether I was doing the wrong thing. So all I could do then was do my very best to make sure I was writing them as well as I could. And had a lot of female readers read the book and pick me up if I'd done anything wrong or overstepped my mark or misunderstood the female experience, and leaned into it that way. That's how I went about it, starting with character and then figuring out which gender best suited the plot and the story rather than the other way around.
That's so interesting. And you do it, your writing of and your development of female characters is incredible from a masculine perspective. Like, I really identified with the way that you'd written them, and almost in a way that I would experience, well, I usually experience from a female author. So it was really, really great to read that.
Thank you very much. I'm going to write that down. Thank you.
Put it on the back of the book. So obviously, aside from Ren, Zoe, Daniel and Barrow, there is of course the equally central character of the Rain Heron. Its own story is heavily intertwined with each human character's connection to it, making for an incredibly complex story of trauma, grief, loss, perseverance, survival. What was your inspiration behind the Rain Heron as a myth, a realised character, and also the central driver of the novel?
Well, I really wanted to write a myth and a fable that was reflective of the natural world and come up with a creature where you didn't know if it was real or not well into the book, that reflected both the beauty and the savagery of nature. Because one thing that I can never stand in old stories or fables is when you'll have a natural creature or an animal that is very concerned with the human characters involved, because it doesn't take much to look at the natural world and realise that animals and nature aren't very concerned with people at all, and why would they be? So I wanted a creature that was really kind of overwhelmingly beautiful and amazing and kind of mesmerising, but also really quite harsh and brutal. And I realised I was thinking of a storm. So the inspiration for it, once I figured all that out, was how can I turn a storm into an animal? And it made sense that it would be a bird. It made sense it would have lots of watery elements to it. And it made sense to me that it was made out of rain by the end. So that's where it came from. I wanted something that was equal parts destructive as mesmerising, and that people would be entranced by, but it itself wouldn't really give a crap about the people who had fallen in love with it.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. That's really interesting. Well, Robbie, thank you so much for talking with me today and for taking the time. I can't wait for the Rain Heron to come into the shop next month and to share it with our readers at Dymocks. So thank you.
No, thank you very much, Penny. It's been heaps of fun.
Yeah, it's so nice to speak with you.